Warning. This video plunges into a labyrinth of theories drawn from deep research, shadowed investigations, and trials still unfolding in real time. What you choose to believe is entirely wrong, but understand this: the connections explored here lead into some of the darkest corners of modern history. Viewer discretion isn't just advised, it's essential. Some of the material ahead touches on disturbing, sensitive subjects that may challenge your perception of truth, power, and what operates behind closed doors. And now that that's out of the way, I'd like to get onto the video. So, Blink Twice is a mystery thriller released in 2024 by Amazon MGM Studios. The director is Zoe Kravitz, and this is her directorial debut, which I find to be curious considering the story, its themes, and its messages, and I'm going to make some connections later on in the video. The film itself is shot in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, which is based off a remote and isolated island, ultra-luxury, idyllic private island run by a tech billionaire. Sound familiar? The film centers around a very well-known actress, Naomi Aki, who plays Frida, a waitress in the story who puts in an excellent performance. And in contrast to that, Channing Tatum plays the antagonist, Slater King, who is the tech billionaire that owns the island. Now, before I start making connections and get into potential hidden meanings, I'd like to provide a little bit of context for what the film itself is about and just my initial thoughts. So, the story. A young waitress is invited to a billionaire's remote island, joining a hand-picked group of guests who were seduced by glamour and excess. But as the days passed, the shimmering paradise begins to twist into something predatory. People quietly disappear, behavior shifts in unnatural ways, and the veneer of luxury slowly reveals a far more sinister truth. Nothing happening on this island is voluntary. Now, some of the themes explore the insidious nature of power imbalances, where dominance is disguised as generosity and control is hidden beneath charm. It examines how coercion can be dressed up as exclusivity, how exploitation can be masqueraded as privilege, and how easily consent becomes blurred when wealth overwhelms autonomy. In terms of the film's style, so it is bright, dreamy cinematography, gradually decays into something colder and more clinical, monitoring the island's transformation from paradise to a psychological trap. The sound design deepens the unease, using stretched silences, faint distortion, and creeping tension to suggest that something is quietly, persistently wrong. Visually, the film fuses idyllic beauty with the unsettling rhythm of psychological thriller, creating an atmosphere that is both seductive and suffocating at the same time. Now, some positives of the film, which I found, the film exceeds in atmosphere, building tension with meticulous pacing and strong, unsettling performances from Channing Tatum in particular. The director is stylish and deliberate, guiding viewers from sunlit fantasy into suffocating dread with impressive control, I must say. Couple of the negatives, I'd say that some of the characters do feel slightly underdeveloped and could have done with a little bit more on that. More like fragments of intriguing ideas than fully realized people themselves. And in the final act, although it was really good and I thought it was very impressive, I just felt like it moved a little bit fast, and I preferred earlier on in the film when there was more of a slow pace and it was intoxicating in terms of its tension. And yeah, I thought that was it just let down a little bit slightly at the end. I thought they could have longed it out a little bit more and stretched out that tension even further. So, to build on the context and the initial information that I provided, I'd like to start making the connection and building the bridge between some of the conspiracy theories which I might have identified and some of the hidden messaging. So, this film, it began development in 2017, with the production finally moving forward in 2022. From the beginning, the story seemed quietly steeped in unease, a glossy surface with something far more unsettling beneath it. I think the timeline is actually quite interesting, because public attention around the Epstein investigation escalated in 2018, leading to his arrest in 2019. The timing of these real world events sits uncomfortably close to the thematic evolution of Blink Twice, creating eerie parallel in tone and cultural context. The film's remote island, a sun drenched paradise with secrets lurking in every shadow, echoing a long tradition of thrillers built around wealth, secrecy, and isolation. While fictional, the setting inevitably mirrors the disturbing imagery associated with real world scandals tied to private islands, hidden circles of influence, and the quiet protection of the powerful. At the core of the story lies the figure of a charismatic, wealthy man whose island retreat becomes a place where consent blurs and control is weaponized. The dynamic reflects a recurring narrative in cultural anxieties, the idea that power, when absolute, dissolves morality. Themes of coercion, grooming, and psychological manipulation resonate because they echo fears repeatedly amplified by high profile cases and exposed abuses, as in recent news, which I'm sure everybody is aware of, and we will get into more about the Jeffrey Epstein connections afterwards, and potential references to the cult. So throughout the film, there's a lot of subtle symbols and cryptic moments, hints at secret practices and clandestine groups operating beneath the surface, whether metaphorical or purposeful. These elements contribute to a sense of hidden ritual and underground power, a darkness that feels both stylized and disturbingly familiar in the wake of real-world revelations, which are ongoing. Okay, now that the context is out of the way, I want to start making some connections. So, initially, let's talk about the poster. I think it's very interesting that the poster depicts Channing Tatum um, covering one eye, taking a picture. The antagonist taking a picture of the protagonist. Very interesting, right? So, in my opinion, I've got down a couple of ideas here. So, I believe that the image of the character covering one eye instantly invokes one of the most recognizable symbols in modern conspiracy folklore, the Illuminati eye. Within this methodology, concealing one eye is said to represent allegiances to hidden power structures, a gesture marking awareness of secret hierarchies that watches everything yet reveals nothing. It echoes the legendary all seeing eye from ancient Egyptian mythology, which is tied to depictions of the Eye of Horus and the Eye of Ra, symbols of surveillance, knowledge, and the belief that truth is always seen from above, even when hidden from those below. Covering one eye is interpreted as a silent ritual, a way of signaling obedience to a shadowy order, or acknowledgement of a world where influence is traded in whispers and darkness. Whether taken literally or aesthetically, the act suggests the existence of an unseen order and reality carefully curated to keep certain truths out of sight. The gesture in the poster can be read in several ways, like I previously mentioned, all very unsettling. It could symbolize an obscure reality, the notion that only half the truth is ever shown, while the other half is deliberately shrouded. It might invoke the idea of turning a blind eye, hinting at complicity or the quiet acceptance of terrible acts committed behind the veil of wealth and luxury. Or it may simply serve as a visual echo of occult adjacent iconography that has permeated pop culture for decades, feeding off society's fascination with secrecy, corruption, and the idea that power often hides in plain sight. Whether this is just a coincidence or carefully encoded symbolism is left deliberately ambiguous. And that ambiguity is exactly what makes the imagery so haunting. I think it leaves a lot to be questioned about the purpose of the film itself, the Black Eye Club. Now, in a scene, Lucas, a character in the film, shows up with a black eye that is never clearly explained. Did the women do that to him? Did he inflict that injury, or is it the result of something else? We know that one of the women bit off one of the men's fingers, so it's entirely possible, but there could potentially be a hidden meaning there. So, the Black Eye Club is one of the most persistent modern conspiracy theories, a shadowy pattern where celebrities, politicians, and the powerful people in society appear in public with unexplained black eyes. To believers, it's not just a coincidence, it's a calling card. The Black Eye Club is rumored to mark an initiation ritual, a brutal rite of passage into secret societies such as the Illuminati. The injury isn't just random, it's symbolic, a public bruise that hides a private oath. Pain as proof of loyalty, humiliation as the final test of obedience. Some theorists claim it represents submission, the destruction of the old self before being reborn into the inner circle. Others say it's a punishment, a reminder that even the elites are controlled by something higher. A warning, step out of line and the mark will show. There's also the idea of ritualized trauma, the power structures rely on compromise and coercion, becoming more than just an injury. It becomes leverage, a visible scar of invisible control. And in addition to that, there's the unsettling question: how common are black eyes? I can't personally remember the last time I had one. I'm not sure if I've ever had one. I think potentially in secondary school, but that was a long time ago. Most people can't remember the last time they had a black eye. When did you have a black eye last? They're not everyday accidents for adults in controlled environments, yet somehow, in conspiracy compilations, the same dark bruise appears repeatedly on the faces of the powerful. Is this a coincidence? Maybe. But in the language of conspiracy culture, symbols matter. And a black eye, swollen, dark, impossible to ignore, feels less like clumsiness and more like a signature. What do you think? Red bags. So throughout the film Blink Twice, the red bags really stand out for me. They're not subtle, they're framed, carried, presented, like props with purpose. In a film obsessed with secrecy and ritualistic undertones, red doesn't feel accidental. The colour red is loaded with meaning. It connects to the so-called Red Shoe Club potentially. That's a theory that believes that certain elites signal membership in secret societies through red footwear, symbolic accessories, or coded visual clues. According to a theory, red represents power, blood, initiation, a mark of belonging within hidden hierarchies. Then there's the darker layer, adrenochrome theories. Online narratives claim powerful figures harvest it as part of occult rituals tied to youth and control. In that worldview, red isn't just fashion, it's symbolism: blood, consumption, sacrifice. Secret societies, coded imagery, elite signaling, all these themes live in both conspiracy forums and in films about insulated wealth and unchecked power. Blink Twice lingers on wealth, isolation, ritual like environments, uniformity, submission. The red bags sit aside that atmosphere, like quiet visual production and punctuation. Are they just aesthetic choices, or symbolistic, stylistic contrast, or deliberate colour language meant to trigger something deeper in an audience already primed to question what the powerful do behind closed doors? What do you think? Human sacrifice. So, as we know, the imagery feels very ritualistic long before the violence becomes obvious in this film. The women are slowly stripped of their identity as they are dressed alike, masked, sedated, processed. It's not just aesthetic, it feels like preparation, like they're being readied for something, not guests but offerings. In my opinion, being a bit of a film nerd, this makes me think back to the film Apocalypto, and the comparisons are hard to ignore. In that film, the victims are painted in Maya blue before being sacrificed, marked, purified, transformed from person into symbol. In ancient Maya culture, blue was tied to sacred power, associated with deities and the elements of water and fertility. It wasn't just random decoration, it was spiritual transformation, a step before their blood was spilled. Ritual sacrifice in ancient Maya cultures wasn't just about death, it was about mediation. The victim became a bridge, a messenger, a body used to cross the boundary between human and divine. Then there's the line from Jess in the film: A fantastic character, by the way. She really elevated the story, in my opinion. In one scene, she says, "So, do you think the human sacrifice is before dinner or after?" It is delivered as a joke, but in a film laid with power, secrecy, and exploitation, it lands differently, especially when viewed through the lens of modern conspiracy culture surrounding elite trafficking rings, elite symbolism, adrenochrome myths, and ritual abuse allegations that resurfaced in public discourse after the Epstein files have been started to release. Is it satire? Is it foreshadowing? Is it social commentary? Or is it something darker hidden in plain sight? Is it coincidence or is it a coded message from the director? Do you think I'm stretching or do you think there's something more to this message? Corruption. At the end of the film, Slater says there's a real special place in hell reserved for people that just do nothing. Is this the character talking or the director? In Blink Twice, silence isn't passive, it's protection. The real horror isn't just what happens on the island, it's that no one stops it. Fear keeps mouths shut, power keeps consequences selective, and the system protects itself. And that's where the conspiracy lens sharpens. In the Epstein case, controversy followed every shadow. Reports that jail cameras malfunctioned in the cell which Epstein stayed and died in. That footage was missing. Information in the files was heavily redacted. Powerful names obscured behind black ink. Billionaires, politicians, royalty. Proximity to power seemed to blur accountability. Lawmakers later pushed for greater transparency, while certain officials publicly stated that there was no credible evidence tying Epstein's crimes to broader elite trafficking networks, and yet the distrust lingers. That's actually from Kash Patel, who in Congress publicly on record stated that those connections weren't there to be made. In my opinion, he was most likely perjuring himself. Hopefully, there might be some consequences later down the line if that was the case. So, why were there any redactions at all? Obviously, the FBI had to remove victims' names, which they proved that they didn't do a good job of, having released quite a few of the names. They had to release certain imagery, understandably. But why the gaps? Why the sealed records? Why the procedural failures? In conspiracy culture, those gaps aren't bureaucratic; they're intentional, not incompetence, but on purpose. The British royal family, similarly, has faced similar accusations of shielding insiders from associations with Jimmy Savile. King Charles was one of his best mates, and that's public knowledge. And most recently, Prince Andrew, who lost his title but has so far not faced any legal consequences. Would that happen to me if I was the one that was named in those files or under the same circumstances? Would that happen to you? I don't think so. And that's just the connective tissue with Blink Twice. Powerful men operated in insulated environments surrounded by people who see, suspect, or know, but don't act. And in terms of the victims, so obviously they're unbelievable stories, not literally speaking, but metaphorically or whatever else. These are big accusations you're making against reputable people. Unbelievable stories against credible people. Missing footage, redacted names of co-conspirators, official denials. Is it all systematic failure or is it systematic protection? Let me know what you think. So, is this simply a standard mystery thriller, or is there a deeper meaning behind it all? Did the film intentionally draw on current events to create a story that feels exciting and relevant? Or is there a hidden message? The title Blink Twice has been interpreted as a covert signal for help, often used when someone is in danger or unable to speak openly. This could symbolize the protagonist's desperate attempt to escape a controlling, abusive environment, but it could also be a subtle message from the director herself, straight to the audience. In one final scene, the character Stacy says forgetting is a gift. This could reflect on the coping mechanism that comes from trauma or indoctrination, or perhaps her own fear that her involvement in these terrible acts may eventually be exposed. Stacy's character appears to echo the public imagery of Ghislaine Maxwell, someone who worked closely with a powerful and predatory billionaire, Jeffrey Epstein. Zoe Kravitz, the director, her own family is deeply rooted in the industry, with a dad being a well-known celebrity. This could suggest that she's got some personal insight or awareness of darker realities behind the scenes. It's possible that the film carries hidden messages designed to shed light on real-world events, gradually revealing uncomfortable truths, and attempting to break the cycle of corruption and abuse related to recent events. As it stands, the only person who has faced significant legal consequences in this long running global conspiracy theory is Ghislaine Maxwell, whose legal battle continues. Meanwhile, questions still swirl around Jeffrey Epstein. Did he take his own life? Was he silenced to protect others? Protect who? Or is he still alive somewhere? And if he is still alive, where is he? Who broke him out of jail? What's going on here? Let me know. Let me know what you think. So, final scores are in. IMDb gave a rating of 6.5 out of 10. Letterboxd gave a rating of 3.3 out of 5. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 7.4 out of 10. And I would probably give it a rating of 7.5 out of 10. And my conspiracy meter rating would be a strong 9 out of 10. Now, this is because of all the connections, which are believed to be true, all the things are covered in the video. You know, it feels like more than a film. It feels like a reflection of the Epstein situation that's going on right now, and it's still unfolding. I think it's bigger than just a film, and while it is a good film, I really like films that have got a lot of depth to them, ones that you can look back on, analyze dialogue, analyze symbolism, and I feel like this film is rich in that. And because of that, I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to someone else if you haven't seen it. I'd be really interested to hear everybody's feedback on the film itself in the comments, and also give your own conspiracy meter rating. Is it a 9 out of 10 like mine, or are you more skeptical? And finally, if there's any other films you'd like me to look into, please let me know. Some that are on my mind at the moment are Eyes Wide Shut, The Shining, and many more. So please let me know which you should focus my efforts on at this time. And appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. See you next time.